What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the Saturday edition of the Stochastic NHL Strategy Show. I'm your host, Josh Harris. I see my internet is off to a rip-roaring start here. I don't know what's going on, but it will iron itself out in a second here. We got an 11-game slate here tonight. You know, GPPs are what they are. There's UFC. There's other stuff going on today. Last night, there was only one game. Ottawa went into Carolina and won 3-0. I think Carolina looked like they wanted to be anywhere but on the ice. Ottawa is back-to-back here. They're the only team, obviously, back-to-back. But, you know, 11 games, a lot of big boys on this slate. Looking forward to breaking it down. What's going on, Cliffy?
Not a whole lot. Yeah, I had that game on in the background last night. Thankfully, I wasn't really paying attention to it. Doesn't seem like it was a very good game. More excited about this 11-game slate tonight. I think there are a lot of matchups that are really interesting, actually. Like, you have Buffalo going into Washington. Obviously, Buffalo has struggled. They still have a really, really good top line. We have our boys, the Columbus Blue Jackets, at home against Anaheim in a really good matchup. We have a flowchart special. Montreal Canadiens coming off a 9-2 beatdown going into Winnipeg. You know, Nashville looks like they're still without Roman Josi going into Colorado. That should be fun. Utah, San Jose. Go back 3 months and tell yourself that a Utah, San Jose late night hammer on a Saturday night would actually be pretty interesting. I think September self would be very surprised by that statement, but I think there's a lot to like across the board here tonight. There are some lopsided matchups. There are going to be a couple chalky spots, but there's nothing that really stands out to me like, oh, I really have a hard decision to make about this, except for like maybe Colorado, but we'll get to those as we go along.
Yeah, Colorado mixed up their power play units. We'll talk about that when we get there. Looks like Toffoli might be out tonight. We'll get to that when we get there. Just wanted to shout out Malkin and Tomasino. Pittsburgh scored 9 goals. They were the only two who did not have a point. So
I think you had a Tomasino. You had a Tomasino one-off. I had a Malkin Tomasino two-man, and they're literally the other 10 forwards got at least 1 point. They're the only 2 forwards without a point. That's DFS, man. Sometimes that's the way that cookie crumbles. Frustrating game from a Habs perspective.
I mean, it wouldn't even have mattered, right?
I'm not going to go long on it, but like that was a 3-2 game going into the third period, and then Pittsburgh scored 6 goals in 15 minutes. Just defensive breakdowns all across the board. That's why we say going into Winnipeg is an absolute flow chart special here tonight.
Yep. And on that Thursday slate, our boss, Jake Hari, took down the $5 soak check. We call it the soak check. He calls it the soak check. It's the poke check. And my namesake. Got to get these wins. His name is Josh. He does, I think, like he did NHL content for us. I know he does tennis content, but he took down the 40 for $5,000 as well with Pittsburgh one. I wasn't ever getting to Pittsburgh one on this slate, on that slate. But, you know, we talked about it. They were a very good play. It wasn't the best power play spot. Didn't matter. The Habs just kind of, as Cliffy said, defensive breakdowns everywhere. Congrats to you two guys. Maybe it's our turn tonight. Just inhale all the copium.
Yeah, I mean, that would be nice. 10 days before Christmas Eve, we'll see. We'll see how this goes because, like I said, there are a lot of interesting matchups here tonight.
Yeah. Let's get into the slate. Before we do, just wanted to say thank you guys for hanging out with us on a Saturday afternoon. A nice one, I may add. I don't see any drones outside right now, so my internet might be good. I literally didn't notice anything until someone's like, oh, do you have any drones by your house? And I go outside. There's drones everywhere. So that's fun. But just wanted to say thank you for supporting us with your affiliate signups, just being here, all of that. If you do want to go premium, and we'll never make you go premium, that's not in our DNA. But if you do want to take your game to the next level, you see how that passive aggressively, you can click that link in the chat, use promo code Stochastic15. That'll get you 15% off your first week or month of any subscription. So let's get into this slate. Bacon is very excited about this slate. Come on, big guy. Pittsburgh Penguins with a 3.1 total heading into Ottawa. Our Senators, they're not our Senators, but the Senators have a 3.4 total. I think this is 3 and 4 nights for biting me. 3 and 4 nights for the Senators here. They obviously played yesterday. They were on Thursday's slate or Wednesday's slate. This is a good matchup for them, though. The top line didn't really do anything the other night. It was all Pinto. This is a really good matchup for the Ottawa top line here. Brady Tkachuk, Batherson, and Norris. They'll see a fair bit of rust. Crosby and Gensel, and let's be honest, that line at best is trading chances. They're obviously, their offensive efficiency kind of masks their defensive deficiencies, but this is a very good Ottawa top line. They have almost 3.5 expected goals per 60 in a 65-minute sample. Norris is what he is. He has a role on this team. They are 19,500. They're cheaper than Pittsburgh one here. 11.2% top two stack, 9.3% projected ownership. They're the only team on a back-to-back, and of course, they're in a very, very good spot. They have a very good power play. Batherson has been excellent of late. This isn't the greatest power play spot in the history of power play spots, but their power play has been rolling. I do like Ottawa one here. Am I going to prioritize them on this slate? I don't think so when you look at the other lines in the price range, but I definitely can get behind the play. Even in single entry, I'm fine with it. Positive leverage, great spot. The second line, I want to get behind them. They just haven't been great together for whatever reason. Gaudette will play 12, 13 minutes. They are cheap enough. They're almost a filler. Giroux is under 4K, which is rare for him, and he plays a good amount of minutes. They've kind of been empty minutes recently, so I'll defer to Ottawa one here. On the Pittsburgh side, I know they burned everyone, including us, the other night, but they moved Bunting up to the second line. Malkin, Bunting, Tomasino, they're 10,800. That is a big offensive upgrade from Cody Glass. I do have interest there as a filler. They are coming in, 5x their top two stack, but at that price, I have no issue with it. One could argue the second power play unit is the better power play unit. Yes, Raquel scored on the power play, but it was from Letang and Grzelcyk. So, I don't know, man. Power play stacking the Penguins, it seems wild, but, I do prefer Pittsburgh too. If you want to go to Pittsburgh one, that's fine. They're just kind of in a weird price range on the road, 19,900. It's a little bit pricey. At that point, I'll just save the $400 and play the home team, especially when you have Colorado 1, Tampa 1, Toronto 1, Winnipeg 1 in that price range. You have Florida 1 that's more expensive. Even, Toronto 2's in that price range. You know what I mean? So, it's hard to prioritize Pittsburgh 1 here when all the lines that I mentioned have a higher top two stack percentage. So, I would defer to Pittsburgh 2 here. I like Ottawa 1 and Pittsburgh 2.
So, yeah, I agree on the Ottawa side. It is the top line for me. And one of the reasons is, as you mentioned, with Gaudette there, they haven't been bad. It's just they've been about break even by expected goals, for and against. About break even by shot attempts, for and against. So, definitely not bad, but not high event, not scoring a lot. You only get Stützle on the top power play unit. The other thing is they've been getting less ice time of late. Stützle will probably still play 20 plus, but especially with Gaudette there, they've been cutting back. Obviously, he doesn't get a lot of minutes, as you mentioned. Giroux's been getting his minutes cut back to about 17 a game. There are games where that Pinto Amadio third line, Pinto Amadio and Cousins, is getting more ice time at even strength than the Stützle line. That's worrisome because, one of the reasons why we liked that line in the first 6 weeks of the season was there were a lot of games where Stützle would get 22 minutes, Giroux would get 20, whoever the winger was would probably get 16 or 17. Like, it's just not the case anymore. So yeah, Ottawa won, 3.2 expected goals, 2.8 actual goals. They're only shooting 7.5%. I think league average is about 8.5%. Typically, a Brady Tkachuk line isn't super efficient scoring wise. They just create a lot of volume. If they can ever get to like 9.5%, something like that, this is going to be a really high-end offensive line. I'm not worried about any of the Pittsburgh matchups. I like Ottawa won the best in this game. And you're right, they have had a busy schedule of late. It's a back-to-back, obviously, as you mentioned, and it's 5 and 8 nights for them. That's a heavy schedule load. But like, if there's any matchup where I would say I'm not that concerned about it, and I think the 3.4 total shows that, it's at home against the Pittsburgh Penguins. So, yeah, I do like Ottawa won. On the Pittsburgh side, I kind of agree with you that they're just in a price range where I'd rather shell out an extra couple grand for a more expensive line or just go play Ottawa won instead. Like, I get the appeal with Pittsburgh. They're just coming off a big game. They have low ownership. It's notable that Ullmark started last night, which means it's probably going to be Anton Forsberg tonight. Ullmark's been on a pretty good little heater of late. 3 goals against in his last 4 games. His save percentage is actually now up to a respectable 909. Forsberg hasn't been that goalie. That's the one thing that kind of concerns me. If they were still perfectly correlated on the power play, I would have a lot more interest in the Penguins, but they're not. So, like, I'll just go to Pittsburgh or to Ottawa one here. I think Pittsburgh 2 is perfectly fine. I'm starting to get like nervous, I guess you could say, especially like not getting in on any of the goals on a 9-goal game. That's going to stick with me to the end of the season. But yeah, like, I'm perfectly fine with Pittsburgh 2. I'm not super concerned about those second and third line matchups from Ottawa, but it's Ottawa 1 that I like best in this game, and it's not particularly close.
Yeah, I see people hopping in the chat to say the Rangers are a joke. They're getting absolutely lambasted by the Kings 5-0 right now. I mean, what do you expect with those defensive pairings? Like, there's nothing they can do. Like, there's nothing in front of him. If he's not going to have a 930 save percentage, this is going to be the result. That's what would have been the result last year too, if he didn't have a great season. So they have defensive deficiencies.
I'm just looking at natural stat trick. They only have updated up to 5 minutes into the second period, 85% expected goal share for the Kings.
I mean, it's only 5 minutes into the second period, so that's up to date.
Okay, that sucks.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I'm not going to cry about it. I'll cry about it later. Toronto Maple Leafs with a 3.3 total. Heading into Detroit, the Wings have a 2.6 total. Toronto going Matthews, Marner, Nyes, Nylander, Tavares, Pacioretty. The big news there in practice yesterday, they moved Nyes off the top power play unit. They put Morgan Riley there. So thankfully, the 5-forward experiment has ended. Unfortunately, that means none of the top 2 lines are fully correlated. This is a good power play matchup, and it's a pretty decent 5-on-5 matchup. I will say Detroit hasn't been awful recently 5-on-5, but it is still Detroit. So anything can happen, and Cam Talbot got hurt, so it's Ville Husso or worse in net. Now, Toronto one is $22,200. That's getting really expensive. Somehow that's the 4th most expensive line on the night. There are Florida 1, Tampa 1, and Colorado 1 are more expensive. Now, they'll be getting Larkin, Raymond, Rasmussen. They haven't been world beaters defensively, but I'd say they're about league average. But of note there, they will see a fair bit of Simon Edvinsson and Moritz Seider pairing, and that pairing has been legitimately good. I don't have issue going to Toronto 1 here despite that. You know what I mean? if you want to play Toronto 1, they're coming in at 6.3%. McDavid low own makes me nervous. So does low own Matthews, because he can destroy a slate. Now, in this game, however, one of the biggest cogs on the power play is William Nylander. He's on a line with Tavares and Pacioretty. That line has been excellent. Obviously, the Matthews, Marner, Nyes line has been excellent, like even better offensively. But once you get past that Sider pairing, you'll go like that second line is going to see a lot of Petrie, Ben Sherratt. You know what I mean? And like Nylander, Tavares, Pacioretty have been very, very good this season. Pacioretty has been very. I mean, he came back and like nuked the slate at 3,100 basically the other night. They're 19,100. They're coming in with positive leverage. Like, I'm completely fine with Toronto 1. I think in single entry for me, it's hard for me to spend 22-2 on Toronto 1 when Toronto 2 is $3,100 cheaper in a better 5-on-5 matchup, and you get arguably the most important player on the power play. Like, if you want to play Toronto 1, I'm not going to say no, but like I'm just going by like the matchups. And if Toronto 2 wasn't as good as they were offensively, I would go to Toronto 2. But Nylander, Tavares, and Pacioretty have been great. For 22-2, right, I'm just going to go play Colorado or Tampa. So Toronto 2 for me, I'm completely fine with Toronto 1. It's going to be Joseph Woll in net. Stellaris got hurt. I don't really love these lines at all for Detroit. If you happen to get Larkin, Raymond, Rasmussen in your 150 mix, fine. But other than that, like a DeBrincat one-off. But other than that, I'm out on the Wings.
Yeah, I'll be quicker than that on Detroit. I'm just not playing the Wings here tonight. You mentioned that Detroit has been better lately defensively, and you're right. And then I went and looked at their schedule over the last 15 games. This is who they played. Pittsburgh, Anaheim, San Jose, Islanders twice, Bruins twice, Calgary, Vancouver missing Miller and Hronik, Ottawa, Buffalo, and Philly. Like there's a game against New Jersey and a game against Colorado in there. But other than that, you're looking at like 12 out of 15 games against teams not in the top 10, most of them in the bottom half of the league in scoring. Like it's just not been a really tough stretch for them. So like I'm still going to look at their entire season numbers. I'm not just going to look like the last month or whatever. It sucks that Nyes lost that power play role. I'm going to be honest. He hadn't been really doing a whole lot lately. Actually, not even lately. For a while now, 27 shots in his last 20 games. That's like Ante Kopitar stuff, right? Like he just wasn't doing a whole lot. It makes it easier to just not put him on the stack. Like I really do like both of the Toronto top lines. I think I kind of agree with you on Toronto too. Like they have been their expected goals created and their shot attempts created are just a shade below the top line. And then they're going to avoid that Evanson Mort Cedar pairing. So, yeah, I really do like Toronto too. If Toronto 1 was still perfectly correlated, I would probably go in that direction because it is a really good power play matchup. But where you get two guys on each power play line, we mentioned on the last show that William Nylander is a key cog of the top power play. Like he gets as involved as nearly anybody when they do score. So, yeah, I think you're perfectly fine just going right back to Toronto 2 here and saving some money. Like, I think Toronto 1 is fine. I'd probably be more interested in a Matthews one-off than stacking the entire line, right? I just think considering Nyes isn't on the power play anymore, doesn't shoot very much. Marner's not shooting a ton. Like, you're hoping he can get the 3-assist bonus, the 3-point bonus, basically. I'd be more inclined to one-off Austin Matthews than I would be to stack the line. I think it's Toronto 2 for me. That's what I like. That's like I'm not playing Detroit.
Yeah. And, if Pacioretty stays healthy, he's looking good. He's had issues staying healthy, so we'll see how long that lasts. Buffalo Sabres with a 2.7 total heading into Washington. The Capitals have a 3.4 total. Buffalo running out Thompson, Tuck, Paterka, Cousins, Kulich, Benson, Zucker, Greenway, McLeod. Capitals are Pierre-Luc Dubois, Protas, Wilson, McMichael, Strome, Radish. Now, the Buffalo power play units kind of are a mess. You only get Tage Thompson on the top unit on the first line. The second line, Kulich and Benson. And then Owen Powers running that unit. I don't know what's going on with Owen Power, but he is not having a good season. And that top line is 21,200. That's just priced out for me in single entry. I'm out on them. You want to have like a Tage Thompson one-off, something like that, I think that's fine, but I can't pay 21,200 for 2.7 total Buffalo one on the road, despite it being a decent matchup. I don't mind Buffalo too. They have been decent together in a small sample. Cousins, Kulich, Benson. You get 2 of the 3 guys on the top power play unit. Like, that's probably where I go as a filler on the Buffalo side. I don't really love Buffalo here. On the Washington side, it would be going back to the McMichael, Strome, Radish line. Like, McMichael and Radish have played really well together this season. It doesn't really matter the center. I think Strome is obviously their best center. You get 2 of the 3 guys on the top power play unit, Strome, McMichael. Cliffy has mentioned a bunch on previous slates that the power play has been better without Ovechkin. It would be McMichael, Strome, Radish for me. If you want to leave off Radish and add in Wilson and make it a power play stack, that's fine. Like, the Protas, Dubois, Wilson line had a pretty good game the other night. I just, you get one guy on the top unit, one guy on the second unit. Protas isn't on either unit, so I would go to that Strome McMichael line. So I'm good with McMichael and Strome, and then as a filler, the Cousins, Kulich, Benson line.
Yeah, I think because Buffalo is taking a fair amount of penalties, I want the Washington line with the most guys on the power play, and that's McMichael, Strome. It'd be tough in a matchup like this. Like, Buffalo's at 3.1 times shorthanded over the last 5 weeks. I think that's 4th or 5th most in the league. So, Washington could get their fair share of power plays here tonight. They've been, like you mentioned, they've been pretty good since Ovechkin went down. 11.4 goals per 60 without Ovechkin on the top power play unit. And that's shooting 15.5%, which is basically normal for a power play. Like, they're not riding hot or anything. Like, they're just genuinely scoring about 30% more goals on the power play than the league average does for a top power play unit. And they're creating the shots to go with it. Like, this is a good power play matchup. I really do like McMichael and Strome. They have been, pretty high pace this season. 3.4 expected goals for, 3.3 against. Like, that's pretty close to Pittsburgh top line levels of trading chances. But they do create a lot. Obviously, McMichael's been superb this year. Strome is a great playmaker for him. So I agree with that line. That would be the one I would target. What I will say is that just in general, I do want to mention Eliaksek Protas. He was a guy, basically up until this season, you hated seeing him in the top 6 because he was like the Mikey Anderson of forwards, where he would get 15 or 16 minutes and just not do anything. He's made genuine improvements. Like, his zone entry and his tracking numbers tracked by all 3 zones. Like, his zone entry numbers are up. His playmaking is way up, elite. He genuinely seems like he's made a lot of improvements and is a very good player, but it's just this is a matchup where I want to take advantage of what could be 3-4 power plays for Washington here tonight. So it is the McMichael line I like best. On the Buffalo side, Buffalo 1 is kind of interesting to me. Alex Tuck did get moved up to the top power play in the last game, so you might get Thompson and Tuck on the power play. Now, the power play has been pretty bad for a couple weeks now. Whether they turn it around, I guess we'll see. but there's no ownership on them. That's what worries me, is like Tage Thompson has as much upside as just about any player in the NHL. Outside of like maybe a half dozen forwards, he has, like your Matthews, McDavid's or whatever. He's at the very top of that next tier for upside. And it always worries me when no one's playing his line, even at their price. So I'll just say full out, I'm not playing Buffalo 1 here tonight. But if I was playing a bunch in a single entry, if I was playing a bunch of lineups, I'd be giving it a little bit more consideration, because they have been very good this year, 3.9 goals per 60 at 5-on-5. It's just that the power plays kind of let them down, and that until they figure that out, it's just really tough to pay over 21K for, a bad team with a bad power play. So I agree with you on Buffalo too. Cousins and Benson are up to nearly 200 minutes together this year. 2.9 goals per 60, shooting under 10%. So like, they're not riding hot or anything. They're just, legitimately scoring well in secondary minutes. Cousins gets power play time. Kulich doesn't play a lot, but he has 25 shots in his last 10 games. Like, he's been involved offensively. I agree with you. I think I kind of like that Buffalo second line as a little filler here tonight. I do worry that Lindy Ruff has reached the end of his rope with basically all his forwards, and that if they're down 2-0 in the second period, these lines just get nuked to oblivion. So that's why I'm not super high on Buffalo here tonight. But I think they are one of those very low-owned spots that if I was playing 20 lineups, certainly 150 lineups, that I'd be giving a second look to.
Yeah, if you didn't mention that, I would have. He has a very short fuse recently with Peterka, and that's another reason why I don't want to spend $21,200 for Buffalo 1. Like, if they are down 1-0 at the end of the first, you could see, Zucker up there and Peterka, banished to Narnia. So, like, who knows? Maybe they figure it out and win 7-0 because we just bashed them. But, that such is life, my friends. Let's get to the main event of the evening. Nice early start for the main event. The Anaheim Ducks with a 2.7 total heading into Columbus. Our Ken Johnsons have a 3.4 total. Anaheim going Vetrano, Terry Strome, McTavish, Gauthier, Robbie Fabry. I completely forgot he was even in Anaheim, if we're being honest. Leo Carlson with Alex Killorn and Brett Leeson. The Ducks traded Cam Fowler to the Blues. Like, one of the worst trades was Jacob Trouba getting traded to the Ducks. The Blues GM was like, hold my beer. Let me go give up a second-round pick for Cam Fowler. There are 5 forwards, 5 defensemen. I think it's 30 years old or older. The Blues have 4 of them. And they're all signed to long-term deals.
Making $6.5 million a season. And I think I mentioned this on social media somewhere, but like, the last couple of years, you have Jake Wallman getting traded for Nick Leddy, signing a 40-year-old Ryan Suter, and then trading for Cam Fowler. This isn't good.
While Scott Perunovich is just wasting away in the press box.
And I'll let you break the game down, but just one quick note. This might be an addition by subtraction type thing for Anaheim. Like, Cam Fowler was getting he was getting his brains beat in and game out for the Ducks. Like, not just by some of the metrics we look at, by like actual goals against. It's one of those things where it's like, it's hard to have worse results than what Cam Fowler had done this year with Anaheim. So any sort of improvement on that is a pretty important, I don't want to say step forward, but a pretty important development for Anaheim and how they are defensively.
The only thing Cam Fowler did well was stretch passing.
Yeah, I mean, he was a good defenseman up until a few years ago. And now he's 33, 34 years old. Like, it's just what happens to NHLers. Not all of them can play well into their mid-30s. That's just it's just life.
Yeah. Well, anyway, let's get into this game here. I see Frost back in the chat, hoping that I will talk good about the Ducks. I won't. I like the Columbus Blue Jackets here. This is one of the best power play matchups on the board. just from the fact that Anaheim takes so many penalties. Now, Monahan, Johnson, Van Riemsdyk is 14,100. You could do whatever you want with Van Riemsdyk here. Like, I don't particularly want to play him. So something that I would do if I am going to play Columbus here is leave Van Riemsdyk out, add in Dmitry Voronkov. It's $1,300 more expensive. That stack becomes 15,400 and is fully correlated. I prefer that top line anyway. Like, Marchenko and Voronkov have good numbers together, but you throw Cole Sillinger into the mix and it just gets a little bit wild because, like, they love Cole Sillinger. He's the Josh Norris of Jacob Trouba's. Like, I just don't get it. So, like, I want Monahan Johnson. They've been very good together. I just want as much power play as I can get. If you want to spend up a little bit more, leave JVR off and add in Marchenko. Just leave JVR off and add in, Werenski because he's wildly expensive. But I do really like the Columbus top line here. The second line's fine because you get Marchenko and Voronkov on the top power play unit. But, like, I don't like Cole Sillinger there. He makes that line worse. So I would go to Monahan Johnson, add in another power play guy if you want, and call it a day. On the Ducks side, like, this is also a very, very good power play spot. Like, this is probably the best double power play spot on the night because, honestly, I just said that Columbus might be in the best power play spot, but honestly, I think the Ducks are in a better one. It would be Vetrano, Terry, Strome. That line has been very, very good of late, at least offensively. Nothing is good defensively on the Ducks, but that line is fully correlated. Columbus takes a lot of penalties. It is Jet Greaves going again. He's been in the NHL or the AHL all season with a save percentage under 910. So I like both top lines here. I think as a filler, you're okay to go to McTavish, Gauthier, Fabry because they're fully correlated on the second unit at 10,200. I think they're fine. I just, as a filler, I don't really want to be using filler lines as on the Ducks. So I would defer to both top lines here, but they're both in really, really good power play matchups.
Yeah. I'll start on the Columbus side. I'll echo what you said. I do want the power play guys here. Not only is it a good power play matchup because Anaheim's penalty kill is not very good. Also, they're going back to John Gibson, I think, tonight. Like, Dostal's been the better goalie this year, so it's a better matchup for Columbus. But the Columbus power play has been legitimately good. Like, sometimes there are power plays like Detroit and Ottawa through the first month and a half of the season or whatever that are good, but they're also shooting 25 or 30%. It's not been the case with this Columbus power play. That the current top unit has only played 11 games together. Because Johnson's been hurt, Voronkov hasn't been there the whole season. Like, so it's only been 11 games worth of ice time, but they're shooting 17%, which is a little high. Like, really good power plays will be like 18, 19%, but like 17's it's not one of those things where I'm like, oh, this has to regress. They're also generating a ton of shots, 68.4 shots per 60 minutes at 5-on-4. Like, a pretty good power play would be around 60. So, like, they're generating a lot. They're scoring well. Anaheim's penalty kill is bad. Like, I agree. For me, it's Monahan and Johnson X. Whether you want to put Marchenko, whether you want to put Voronkov, I think it kind of depends on what you want to do with your build because Marchenko is $1,600 more than Voronkov is. So it does add up to like a 17K stack if you put Marchenko there. It's not. It's a mid-price stack at that point. It's not a filler, but I really do like the Columbus power play here. We'll talk defenseman later. Obviously, I really do like Zach Werenski, but that's where my focus would be on the Columbus top power play because they have been good. It's a good matchup. They're drawing a reasonable amount of power plays, but Anaheim's penalty kill is quite poor. So I do like the Columbus power play here. On the Anaheim side, like Terry Strome and Vetrano are in play at 16,200. Going to be honest, I'd rather just play Monahan, Johnson, and Marchenko at that point. Like I said, it's a 17K line. I'll pay the extra $800 for 2/3 of an excellent top line and a much better power play in just as good a power play spot, honestly, with a much bigger total. So I think Vetrano, Terry, and Strome for me would be more if I was playing 20 lineups, 150 certainly, just to differentiate a bit. But when you can add Marchenko and take off Van Riemsdyk and come out to basically the same price, I'd rather play Columbus here. For me, it would be that Karlsson, Killorn, Leeson line, actually. Like Karlsson is getting power play time. Him and Killorn have generally been fine this year. Brett Leeson, I don't have any affinity for Brett Leeson, but he has been, and he is playing like 16 minutes a game ish. Sometimes a little less, sometimes a little more. Like that's good amounts of ice time. Like I think like a 2-man of like Karlsson, Killorn, Karlsson, Leeson, something like that is perfectly fine as a filler here, going up against the depth from Columbus. Like I said, you still get Karlsson on the top power play unit, so you still do get a little bit of power play correlation, but it is the Columbus side I like best, and it's the Columbus power play guys.
Yeah, looking forward to the JVR 5-point night. Montreal Canadiens with a 2.4 total heading into Winnipeg. The Jets have a 3.5. Now, I don't know if it's confirmed, but it looks like Slafkovsky is moving back up to the top line with Caulfield and Suzuki. He was there for the third period last game. I don't think they skated yet.
Yeah, I was reading the tweets from one of the French beat writers, and Slav was up there on the top line in practice yesterday, and they had Newhook down on the second line with Doc and Laine.
That would make sense. I don't speak French. So moving Slafkovsky up to that top line does a couple things. One, it makes them fully correlated, and two, it probably makes them a little bit worse defensively. Not that like they can get much worse. I'm sure there's room for improvement in the negative direction. This is the flowchartiest flowchart game ever in the history of flowcharts. I am nervous about playing the Jets for this reason. I know it's a different coach, but last year, Scheifele, I think it was Scheifele. It was this line. Scheifele, Velarde, Connor were rolling. They went into Montreal and lost 2-1 in overtime. And then that line got broken up for like 3 months. I cannot get that out of my head. It might have been Ehlers. I don't know. But the flowchart says in a good matchup, you fade them. The problem is, this is an excellent matchup. They're fully correlated. This is a great power play spot. They're under 20,000. They have one of the higher top 2 stack percentages. They have positive leverage. All the planets are aligned for them. So it's just whether if you want to go against the flowchart or not. And that's not really a DFS metric, although I would say we haven't really tracked it, but it's accurate to 106%. So, do what you want there. They are an excellent play here tonight. It's a good matchup, great power play spot. So I do really, really like Winnipeg 1 here. I want to go to Winnipeg 2 as a filler. They're under 10K. I would reserve that for power play stacking something. They just don't have enough minutes. I'd probably just go to Lowry, Niederreiter, Appleton at the same price if I wanted more minutes. On the Montreal side, that top line now is fully correlated. Their price is a little bit of an issue. So 2.4 road total above 17K, probably not super interested, but in 150, if you got a couple, that's fine. A line a one-off is fine because this is a decent power play matchup, but really this is a Winnipeg 1 game.
One of the reasons I'm not super high on Montreal, there are a lot of reasons. One of the reasons, they're not getting a ton of minutes. Suzuki's not getting his 21, 22 minutes. Laine and Doc have been 15, 16 minutes since Laine came back. It's not really a lot of ice time. It's not like Laine's cheap either. He's $5,800. Cole Caulfield's only $1,500 more. So, if you believe in revenge narratives, maybe Laine still wants to stick it to the Jets a bit. But, I'm pretty much out on the Habs. It is the win. Like, it is a flowchart game, but I am in more on the Winnipeg side. Winnipeg top line, even since Dylan Sandberg went down, 3.3 goals per 60 minutes. Now they're shooting 12.3%. That's a little bit high, but nothing extreme, and certainly nothing they can't replicate against the Habs. Montreal's been taking a ton of penalties. The Winnipeg power play has gotten a bit worse since Ehlers went down. That's a little concerning, but Montreal's at 3.5 times shorthanded per game over the last 4 weeks. It's the second most in the league. The only team taking more penalties is Utah. So, Winnipeg should get 3, if not 4 power plays here tonight. If they get that many against the Habs, I like their chances on converting at least one. So, yeah, I do like Winnipeg 1. I also agree on Winnipeg 3. Winnipeg 3 would be where I would go. They do get minutes, especially at home in that matchup, or when they match up against top lines. And their filler status, right? 9,300. There are a bunch of 24K lines here tonight. So if you're playing one of them and you need something super cheap, I think Winnipeg 3 would be the direction I would go. But yeah, this is a Winnipeg 1 game for me.
Yeah. St. Louis Blues with a 2.5 total heading into Dallas. The Stars have a 3.5 total. Dallas running back Robertson, Johnston, Hintz, Duchesne, Marchman, Stankoven. Blues going Thomas, Buchnevich, Kyrou, I believe, and then, or is it Neighbors now?
It's Kyrou last game.
Probably. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Kyrou. And then Neighbors, Shen, and Sod. Our top stacks is a little bit off there. I see there's a ton of ownership here on Dallas 1. Dallas doesn't really hard match at home. They just kind of send them out with whoever. I still think that Dallas top line will see a decent amount of Thomas Buchnevich, and that line has been very, very good at both ends of the ice. And for reasons unknown, Johnson, Hintz, Robertson haven't been great offensively this season. They are fully correlated on the power play, so if you want to go to them for that reason, that's fine. But again, this is a situation where I'm just going to the second line for $100 cheaper and a tenth of the ownership. Duchesne, Marchman, Stankoven, 16,600, 1.8 percent projected ownership. They've been way better offensively. They've fully correlated on the second unit, which has been the better unit. They will avoid Thomas for the most part. Once you get past that line, Shen, Sod, and Neighbors have been okay, but nothing to be feared. So it would be Dallas 2 for me. St. Louis 1, anytime they're together, fine. But they're getting pricey. This is a brutal matchup. So if you get them in your 150 mix, fine. But in single entry, I'm out on the Blues.
Yeah, and I should say we don't have confirmation on the Blues lines either. They moved Kyrou up to the top line during the game last game. I haven't seen anything from a morning skate yet. All the information's been about the Cam Fowler trade. Cam Fowler might actually play tonight, if I'm not mistaken. They're trying to get him there on time. So for all those reasons, and it's going into Dallas against Jake Ottinger. I just don't have any interest in St. Louis here tonight. For me, it is closer to the Dallas side. I think I agree on Dallas 2 for ownership reasons. The thing about Dallas 1 is, a big concern about playing Dallas 1 a month ago was ice time. But since Tyler Seguin went down and Maverick Bourque hasn't been that great, they basically had to go to being a team that uses its top line heavily. And they have been playing more, 18 to 20 minutes a game, whereas there was times a month ago where they're playing 15, 16 minutes. They are getting a lot more ice time, and I do think that matters. I would probably lean Dallas 1 here. I can't get out of my head how good that line was the prior 2 seasons compared to what's been a down year so far this year. Maybe it's Robertson being hurt. Johnston hasn't been quite himself. Whatever it is, it's hard for me to just kind of ignore what happened the prior 2 seasons. I'm just still kind of waiting for them to break out. This probably is a 20K line if they're playing to their capabilities. So for me, I would probably go to Robertson, Johnston, and Hintz. The power play has been getting a little bit better. Yes, they're going to be higher owned, probably double-digit ownership because it is a huge total. But, more ice time. They do have a lengthy history of playing well together. So I would go to Dallas 1, but like Dallas 2, like you mentioned, they've been so good. Even with Stankov in there, 3.3 expected goals per 60. They haven't scored a ton because they're shooting under 5%. Like this is probably a 10% scoring line. So once that goes up, they're going to be filling the net. But for me, I'm going to lean to the minutes here. I'm going to go to Dallas 1. But I think whichever line you want to play from Dallas, I think both top lines are very firmly in play, even if there is a top 2 stack discrepancy, just because Dallas 2 has played so well. It just worries me that they are leaning more on the Dallas top power play unit. Don't know why, because as you said, the second unit's been much better all season long, but at least the Dallas first unit is starting to come around a bit. So Dallas 1 for me, but I think both Dallas lines in play.
Nashville Predators with a 2.7 total. Heading into Colorado, the Avs have a 3.4. Does not look like Roman Josi will be back tonight. That hurts, obviously. Colorado made some changes to their top power play unit. They moved the Lehkonen and Nichushkin down to the second unit. They elevated Casey Middlestat and Ross Colton. So now both of the top 2 lines have 2 players on the top power play unit. For some reason, they're leaving together Forsberg, Stamkos, Marchessault, O'Reilly, Nyquist, Zachary. I know he's French Canadian, so I'm not even going to attempt the L''H. Zach, we'll call him. The ever popular Zach, like in Dude, Where's My Car? Except that was Mark. I will say on the Nashville side, I don't really have a ton of interest in that top line. This is a 35-minute sample. But I just wanted to give you an idea of how bad defensively they are. Their expected goals for per 60 is 2.4. Their expected goals against per 60 is 5.2. It's a 35-minute sample, and it's going to even out. Maybe it won't, but that's just, they're not even controlling 50% of the play. I do really, really like Colorado 1 here. It's kind of annoying they took Lehkonen off the power play unit because for 24,400, besides the minutes, I want full power play correlation. So that is a bit annoying. He is 5,500, so I guess you can lower it to 23,300 if you want to go to Casey Middlestat, or you can make it an even 25,000 if you want to add in Ross Colton. But it's a really, really good 5-on-5 matchup, so I say you just kind of leave it as it is. You want to go to Colorado 2 because you still get 2 guys on the top power play unit for $8,700 cheaper. I say it's fine, but like we're getting to the point now. I know a couple weeks ago we're like, yeah, it's fine to leave McKinnon off, but he is shooting the puck like a madman now. It's kind of hard to stack Colorado without McKinnon. I guess you could leave Nichushkin off and add in McKinnon and make it like McKinnon, Colton, Middlestat. But like, again, it's not the best power play matchup. Yes, their penalty kill hasn't been great when the goaltending hasn't been great, but Saros is one of the better goalies in the league. So I think I would just straight up full line stack here, and it would be Colorado 1. I don't have much interest in Nashville 1. Not really anything in Nashville 2. I will say Nashville 3, 7,700, Novak, Evangelista, Jankowski. You can do whatever you want, Jankowski. I think a 2-man Novak, Evangelista for basically min price if you're power play stacking, something expensive is fine. But other than that, it's a Colorado 1 game.
Yeah, I agree on Colorado 1 just because it is such a good 5-on-5 matchup. Like you said, it is a small sample for the entire top line. I was just looking at Stamkos and Forsberg just without Ryan O'Reilly, 75 minutes, 3.5 expected goals against per 60. It's
terrible.
just really bad. It should be a matchup that the top line can kind of feast on here. It is not a good power play matchup. What I will say is that over the last 15 games with a man in the penalty box, Nashville's save percentage is .934. It's simply preposterous. It's one of those things that has to come down probably about 40 points at least.
That would win you a Vezina at even strength.
Yeah, exactly. So I do think that gets a little bit worse. And like the power play was legitimately not good with Nichushkin. Like I'm a Nichushkin guy, and I'll admit, like it just wasn't good with him there. So like this is probably an upgrade of some sort. But yeah, I really do like Colorado 1. What to do with Lehkonen, I think, is kind of interesting because it is such a good 5-on-5 matchup. I still feel fine playing him, but like at his price, like if he gets a goal and a couple shots, it's not really enough. Like it's fine, but you would probably want a multi-point game from him. Like he can do it. I think I would probably just leave him in because, you know, Ross Colton is genuinely more expensive. Lehkonen's still going to play a ton of minutes. Like he's still probably going to play 20 minutes even without the top power play time or close to it. If you want to get cheaper and put in middle stat, I think that's fine. But I would probably just leave Lehkonen. It's Colorado 1 for me. Nashville 1 is a little interesting to me just because, yes, they do have bad defensive numbers. The offensive numbers, at least by expected goals and shot attempts, have been fine. And Colorado 1 is another one of those lines that trade chances, like we talked about earlier with Pittsburgh. You know, Colorado's top line, 3.3 expected goals for, 2.9 against, like 3.2 actual goals against because the goaltending's been pretty bad. Like, you know, hopefully things get better. It looks like Mackenzie Blackwood's probably going to start tonight. Hopefully it's better with him. If it's not a bad matchup for Nashville, but like, I'm just going to play Colorado instead. Like I would literally rather pay an extra $6,000 and just play Colorado instead. So yeah, Colorado 1 for me.
Florida Panthers with a 3.4 total heading into Calgary. The Pilot Lights have a 2.6 total. I haven't really been following Florida on this road trip, but they have not looked great based off the box scores. Not that like box scores are everything, but I don't know, man. Like that top line of Verhaeghe, Barkov, Reinhart, 22,500. They are only coming in at 4% projected, but it's not like Colorado 1 for $1,900 more is coming in at like 40% owned, right? They're coming in at like 15% projected. So, and they're much better. Like that line hasn't been anything special at 5-on-5 this season. It is the Flames, though. It is Dustin Wolf, which is an upgraded net. I just like it's hard for me to prioritize Florida 1 here when you have Colorado 1 more expensive, Tampa 1 more expensive. You have both Leafs lines that are cheaper. You know what I mean? You have Winnipeg 1 at 19.9. You know what I mean? So like they're fine. And if someone said, hey, what do you think about Florida 1? Can I play them in my single entry? I said, sure. They're fully correlated in a good matchup. It's just, you know, it's hard for me in my personal lineup to prioritize them over some other lines. The second line, like, I don't know if Evan Rodriguez is going to be there. Could be Bachquist. Like, I don't know, man. Like, Kachuk's 7,500, and he's, you know, playing 18 minutes a game. For 7,500, I want closer or over 20 minutes, you know what I mean? So it would be a Florida 1 game or bust. On the Calgary side, like, Kadri, Huberdeau, Pospisil, they've been pretty good for 12-2, but they're coming in 4x their top 2 stack. Like, yeah, I've mentioned anything worth a damn at that price is going to be negatively leveraged, but like this is a brutal spot. The Florida lines haven't been great offensively. They've been okay defensively. That, you know, Bennett, Kachuk, X line hasn't been great, but it's a very small sample. I guess if anything, it would be Kadri, Pospisil, Huberdeau, but I don't think I'm going to make a living playing the Flames tonight. So, like, if they happen to get in your mix, fine. Otherwise, I don't particularly love the Flames.
Yeah, it would be that Kadri line I would go to because they have genuinely been good. 3.3 expected goals, 5.2 actual goals. Now, shooting 14.7%. They're not going to shoot that. They'll be lucky if they can shoot 10%, but that would still leave them well above average. Like Huberdeau's getting power play time. They are coming in with a lot of ownership. I don't want to play this line if they're like 8 to 10% on an 11-game slate. And it is Spencer Knight starting for Florida. He has been better than Bobrovsky so far this year. So not a lot better, but meaningfully enough. So I don't mind Calgary 1 year. They would be the line I would go to. I think they're fine as a filler. Other than that, I don't have a ton of interest in the Flames. For me, it would just be that Kadri line. I do think they're in play. Like if you're playing Pittsburgh, Toronto, Winnipeg, like something like that, I think they're perfectly fine to pair with them. But other than that, like I'm not pairing them with like a mid-price stack and then a couple of expensive defensemen. That's just not the way that I would go about a build here tonight. So just the Kadri line, because they have been good. Huberdeau gets power play time. Calgary power play, the top power plays legitimately been good, kind of like sneakily good, like Columbus's has been. So I think they're fine, but I'm not like you. I'm not running out to play the Flames. I do have interest in Florida here. It is the Florida top line I'd have more interest in, but that Florida top line has struggled, but they're only shooting 3%. Like a Barkov-Reinhart line is typically around 10% shooting. This line's right around 3.2. Like they could legitimately be a 4-goal per 60-minute 5-on-5 line if they're just shooting what they probably should be, which is super elite, right? And the Calgary penalty kill really hasn't been great. Florida power play struggled at times, but like I think they're very much in play here, and especially where Colorado 1's not perfectly correlated anymore. Toronto 1 is not perfectly correlated anymore. Like this is a perfectly correlated top line going up against Calgary. It is Wolf over Vladash, so that is an improvement for them. But I don't think that there's really a matchup that I'm super concerned about from the Flames. Like I do kind of like Florida here, but in general, I don't think I have a ton of interest in stacking out of this game. For some reason, this game just screams to me like 3-1, 3-2 or something like that. Oh, excuse me.
Yeah. Like I said, it's kind of hard for me to prioritize Florida on the slate, but yeah, let's move on. Boston Bruins with a 2.6 total heading into Vancouver. The Canucks have a 2.9 total. There was some thought that Lindholm wouldn't play here tonight. He was at morning skate. It was Geeky, Zacha, Pasternak, Marchand, Lindholm, Brazeau, Frederick, Coyle, and Kastelik. Of note in that tweet, they said Nikita Zadorov will be back tonight, back into Vancouver. He leads the NHL in penalty minutes. Good stuff. It seems that there is illness going through the Canucks locker room. They told Lankinen and Forbort to stay away. They won't be playing tonight. It will be Demko and net, and they did have lines at morning skate that were DeBrusk, Pedersen, Sherwood, Hoglander, Miller, Besser, Joshua, Studer, Garland. This is a 5.5 total here. Boston has gotten better defensively. I don't particularly love this game on either side. None of these, lines really stand out. I would say Besser, Miller, Hoglander at 14-1 would be the one line I would consider full stacking. They'll probably see a fair bit of that Zacha, Pasternak, Geeky line. The line's been decent defensively, you know what I mean? But like, it's a 5.5 total. This is Miller's second game back. The one thing is they're 14,100 and no one's playing them. And this line has historically been very, very good. Like Miller Besser is good with everyone, but they have been exceptionally good with Hoglander there. So I don't mind taking a stab on that line. in single entry, it's kind of hard to prioritize anything in this game. On the Boston side, like with Demko back and Quinn Hughes going out against the top line, like I don't really have interest there, and that would leave a Lindholm line, which I don't have interest in. So like a Marchand one-off or a Pasternak one-off is fine, but I don't think I'm prioritizing anything in this game.
Yeah, we can just get to the next game. I'm not playing anything from this.
There we go. The Utes, the Utah Soakers with a 3.3 total heading into San Jose. The Sharks have a 2.7 total. This is, if there was a main event from the early games, this is the main event of the late games. This is an interesting game here. It looks like Tyler Toffoli will be out tonight. Let me pull up their lines because we do not have them. Utah is going Keller, Schmaltz, Hayton, Genther, Cooley, McBain, Bukestad, Krause, Michelli. Sharks are going Eklund, Granlund, Cunnin, Kovalenko, Celebrini, Zetterlund. The rest don't really matter. The top power play unit with Toffoli out will be Celebrini, Cunnin, Wenberg, Wallman, Granlund. So the Macklin Celebrini line only gets one guy on the top power play unit, two guys on the second unit. Same with the top line. So they're spread out across three lines. Wenberg, yeah, it's wait, Granlund. No, Granlund, Cunnin, they're both on the top unit. So that line has two of the three guys. William Eklund back on that line. I really wanted to play Celebrini Toffoli here, but Toffoli being out kind of obviously threw a axe into that plan. I still think something like a Celebrini, Kovalenko, Wallman 3-man is fine. It was Cliffy. Yeah, it was Cliffy. Of course it was Cliffy who put into our Discord Celebrini's numbers with and without Jake Wallman on the ice this season. It's like two different teams. If I'm going to play Celebrini, it's kind of like the Columbus thing, right? If I'm playing Monahan, I want Werenski to come with him. If I'm playing Celebrini, I want Wallman to come with him. So I think Celebrini, Wallman, 2-man is completely fine here. It's a good power play matchup. I just don't really like going across a couple lines, stacking the Sharks. You know what I mean? So something with Celebrini, something with Wallman. If you want to add a third piece, I think that's fine. On the Utah side, this is a little bit more interesting. Like you have choices here. Like that top line has been very, very good, and they've been very, very good for seasons now, outside of last year when Hayton couldn't stay healthy. They're 14-7, 5.6% projected ownership. It's not super chalky. You don't get Hayton on the power play, and that kind of sucks. But if you want to leave Hayton off and add in Logan Cooley, it's $900 more, $15,600. You get a full correlated line. The Sharks' penalty kill is atrocious. It's Vitek Vanacek in net. He hasn't been great. So I think you can do some sort of power play stack on the Utah side. If I had to play one even strength line, it would be that top line. On the Shark side, something with Celebrini and Wallman.
So I was looking at, we talk about Celebrini and Wallman, their numbers together and all that this year. But I was just looking at San Jose at home without Jake Wallman on the ice. He's been a big-time difference maker, not only offensively, but defensively. Without him on the ice, 5-on-5 at home, it's 3.6 goals against per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. That is absolutely horrendous. Like that is like 40% worse than the league average. I think otherwise they're at like two, like with him, like when he's on the ice, it's about league average. When he's not on the ice, it's like 40% worse. It's not even close in terms of defensive measures either. So I do think Utah 1 is very much in play. They have been the better line. They have been good this year, as Josh mentioned. 3.1 expected goals, 3.1 actual goals per 60. You get Schmaltz and Keller on the top power play unit. They're cheap enough where they're not like an 18, 19K line like they were earlier in the year. That's all well and good. Genther, Cooley, McBain is not going to see very much of Jake Wallman here tonight because Wallman does go out and play like 2/3 of his minutes against the opposing top line. Genther, Cooley, and McBain are going to get the depth from the Sharks, and the depth from the Sharks, as I mentioned, has been horrific. Genther and Cooley both on the top power play unit. That line's riding hot, but even if they're shooting, like 10%, that line would still be well above average scoring at 5-on-5. I think they have a really tremendous matchup here. They have a really good power play matchup. The Utah power play has been riding extremely hot. I do worry about that, but San Jose penalty kill's fine, but certainly not good or anything. It is Utah, the second line, the Genther, Cooley, McBain line I like best. You want to take out McBain, put in like Keller or Schmaltz for more power play correlation. I think that's fine, but it's Utah too I like best in this game. On the San Jose side, because it is such a good power play spot, I would lean towards the Granlund line. I would kind of be inclined to leave Eklund off and put on Celebrini. Like I don't think I would stack the Sharks without Celebrini is kind of the way that I would look at it. And just hope that he can get there on the power play because Utah is the most penalized team in the league over the last 5 weeks. San Jose is drawing a lot of power plays, 3.3 per game over the last 5 weeks. I think it's like 4th or 5th most in the league. So like they could get a bunch of power plays here tonight. And I want Celebrini just because of that. So like Granlund, Cunnin, Celebrini, something like that is where I would go just because Granlund and Cunnin do get that power play time. But I think it is the Utah side I like more, and it's Utah 2 specifically.
Some of my favorite advice from a movie came from Angels in the Outfield from their announcer, Ranch Wilder. He said, less is more. With the Sharks, I think I want less. I know Luke Cunnin is on the power play and all that, but I don't know if I can stomach clicking in Luke Cunnin on an 11 game slate, but whatever. We'll get there. I'll figure it out. You'll figure it out too, because you guys are good at building lineups, and I have not been. Tampa Bay Lightning with a 3.2 total heading into Seattle. The Kraken have a 2.9 total. Tampa wasn't on the slate the other night. If they were, they would have absolutely blown up the slate. Gensel had a hat trick. Kucherov had 6 points. I think Point had 3 points. Cirelli had 4 points. Hagel had 4 points. Just ridiculous amount of points. Is Tampa one back? Gensel had 3 shots on goal. He scored on all of them. So the concerns about Tampa are still there on Tampa 1 with their price at $24,100. Now, I will say this is an excellent power play spot, and they will be seeing Chandler Stevenson at 5-on-5. And Chandler Stevenson has been awful defensively with no matter whom he has played with this season. I do like Tampa 1 here. It's just a question if you want to spend up for them over Toronto, over Colorado, Winnipeg, et cetera, et cetera. They do have a 21.5% top 2 stack. 5.9% projected ownership. That is very high positive leverage. And normally I'd say maybe you can leave one of these guys off and add in Hagel. Hagel is $7,000 now, so he is $100 less than Gensel and $600 less than Point. It's not worth the savings. You want to go to Tampa 2, that's fine, but I want as much power play as I can get here. Maybe you add in Hagel, but that gets unbelievably expensive. You know what I mean? So I think at that point, you just kind of either go Tampa 1 or Tampa 2. The third wheel on the second line, you can play him or not. I would just go Cirelli and Hagel. They're $12,200 for the two of them. I honestly, I like going to Tampa 1 here just because it's a great 5-on-5 matchup and a great power play matchup. So most of the season, I've been awful stacking them because of concerns that we've noted along the way. But I think tonight is a good night at their ownership to get on the train. On the Seattle side, Like they have a 2.9 total. I don't know, man. Like I want a line, obviously avoiding Cirelli and Hagel. Like I don't want to play Stevenson and McCann, but McCann is their best player. And that point Kucherov Gensel line does trade chances a fair bit of the time. So I don't mind them. I don't really want to play them. I would probably just go to Wright, Tolvin, and Bjorkstrand as a filler at 9,500. The more Shane Wright plays, the more good things that happen. But again, like Kucherov, Point, Gensel do trade chances, so I don't mind going to Stevenson, McCann.
Yeah, one thing I'll mention is Seattle's kind of gotten away from using Stevenson in the shutdown matchup. And I think with good reason, as you mentioned, he was getting his brain beaten fairly regularly. On Tuesday, Matty Beniers' line went out against Barkov when Florida was in town. Like it was like 60% of their shifts. And I think on Thursday, it was like 65% against the Pasternak line. So, or whomever it was on third. Yeah, the Pasternak line. So they've been using Beniers and Schwartz more in a shutdown matchup. And Beniers and Schwartz, like Beniers has not been good offensively since his rookie year. Like that's just kind of what it is. But he's still really good defensively. And so Jaden Schwartz is still fine. They're at 120 minutes together this year at 5-on-5, 1.7 expected goals against, 1.4 actual goals against per 60. Like they've been really, really good defensively at 5-on-5. Now, Tampa Bay's been able to torch just about everybody. So, like, I'm fine playing them just because they do get minutes. They are perfectly correlated. I just think if this was a week ago, I would probably be more gung-ho on Tampa Bay. But since they did start, the last couple of games, it has been Beniers in that shutdown matchup. I think I'd be more inclined to go play Colorado here tonight, or even dip down if I want full correlation and just go play Florida. So I think Tampa 2 is where I would go. They are really expensive now. Connor, I would probably just full stack. I'm a fan of Connor Geeky. I wrote about him a couple weeks ago at Elite Prospects. Like he has some pretty good tracking numbers this year. Obviously, he's played well with Hagel and Cirelli. He scored the other night in that 8-goal game. They're going to get the depth matchups from Seattle. It is a good power play matchup in the sense that Seattle's penalty kill is not good. Seattle's also the least penalized team in the league over the last 4 weeks by a wide margin, 1.4 times shorthanded per game in the last 5 weeks. Tampa Bay might only get 1, maybe 2 power plays here tonight. It's just tough to rely on. I would be more inclined to go Tampa 2 here tonight. I would probably just full stack with Geeky. This is not a night where I'm focusing on the top line. On the Seattle side, I would go to the Shane Wright line. Like they've been a good line. They're getting 14 to 16 minutes. Bjorkstrand is still getting top power play time. They're cheap enough where, if you do want to play them with Florida, with Colorado, with Toronto top line, like those types of things, they're cheap enough to do that. So it would be Seattle 3, but I think it's Tampa 2 I like best in this game, especially where Grubauer is going to be starting, not Joey Daccord.
Well, I missed the Chandler Stevenson getting demoted memo.
I mean, it should have happened 6 weeks ago, but just thankful it finally happened 2 months into the season.
So, yeah, no, I do agree with you now. Tampa 2 is the better play here. I think Kucherov one-off, obviously, always in play. Let's get to defensemen here. Top of the board, we have Makar, Werenski, Hughes, Hedman if he's in, Montour, Carlson, Morrissey, Weegar. Makar, Werenski, 1-2, obviously. After that, in the top range, I think Montour is actually a little sneaky play. Like, I don't think I'll get to him. And I wish he played more than 21, 22 minutes, but I don't mind him there. John Carlson, I think, is perfectly fine there. I don't particularly love the spend up options. Like, obviously, if I'm going to play Columbus, it would be adding in Werenski. It's kind of hard to add in Makar with a Colorado stack and like have actual hockey players to go with it. But I think Makar makes for a very interesting one-off. What do you think?
Yeah, I have Werenski at the top, obviously, because it's such a good matchup. I also have Josh Morrissey second behind that on a point per dollar basis, not overall projection value, just because it is such a good matchup at home against Montreal. And then Cale Makar. I think, yeah, Makar makes a lot of sense as a one-off here tonight. Especially if you don't want to pay up for Colorado, he plays a lot with McKinnon at 5-on-5. Often Makar is the one finishing the plays. Like, he is scoring a lot of goals, so I'm perfectly fine with him as a one-off. And then, yeah, John Carlson as well. I think he makes a lot of sense for Washington. In the mid-price range, Owen Power's struggling. He's also getting minutes without Rasmus Dahlin in the lineup. So I think Owen Power's perfectly fine. Chris Letang for Pittsburgh. Whatever that power play time's worth, Letang can shoot and can block shots. So there is, some peripheral upside to his game. Jacob Chychrun, again, from Washington. If you don't want to pay up for Carlson, I think Chikrin's fine. Jake Wallman, I really do like him at home in that matchup against Utah here tonight. For cheap defensemen, if Victor Hedman's not back, he was at optional skate today. So it looks like he might be in. If he's not, certainly Darren Radish running the power play for Tampa Bay. Interesting to see what Anaheim's lineup looks like with Cam Fowler gone. I would hope that Olin Zellweger is back in the lineup. If he is, he's running the top power play. Okay. Then Jackson Lacombe, not as much of a priority play, but I imagine he gets a little bit more ice time anyway. Jake McCabe still 2,500 for Toronto. As long as he's 2,500, he's in play. For cheap guys, super cheap guys, Jordan Osterley is one of the defensemen that I'm looking at from Boston. He's getting, around 20 minutes, which for under 3K on DraftKings, I think that's perfectly fine. Michael Del Gazzo is projecting very well for Nashville just because he's going to have to play a lot of minutes with no Riosi, no Carrier, no Jeremy Lozon. Sam Malinsky from Colorado, if you want to pay down. Hayden Fleury for Winnipeg. He's been getting some more minutes with Sandberg injured. Devin Taves, obviously Robbie Fabry. Dante Fabro, geez, as well for Columbus. Brady Shea, I think, is probably the guy to go back to. No Yossi again. Shea was 22 minutes last game running the power play. That's all pretty valuable and what's not a bad matchup for Nashville. Tyler Myers, again, back on the top power play unit. And Kevin Ball for Calgary. He's still perfectly fine at 3K. Gets decent amounts of minutes. He played 23 minutes in the last game, does block a fair amount of shots. So don't mind Kevin Ball at 3K either.
One I'll add as a Josh special, 3,400, Oli Mata. His past 10 games, he's been averaging 23, 24 minutes and has a block bonus in 6 of the last 8 games. And the 2 games he didn't get it, he had 2 block shots. I know it's the Sharks, but he does penalty kill. So let's get to some girlies. Do we really want to talk about it? No, but we are. In the top range, I think Demko at 7,900 makes some sense. Ottinger has some shutout equity. So does Hellebuck. I don't really want to spend that much for goalies here tonight. It would probably be Demko as high as I would go. I don't mind those top 2 guys, especially in cash games. Mackenzie Blackwood could be interesting if he does start, but we'll see if it's him. Which Wood starts, if it's Blackwood or Wedgwood. I kind of have some interest if it is Blackwood. In the mid-range, Dustin Wolf is fine at 7,500. Jeremy Swayman. I don't love these guys. Usually there's one that kind of sticks out. If you want to ride the flow chart and go Sam Montembeau at 7K, you could, but I just don't particularly love these cheaper guys here tonight. I guess, we'll have to see if Swayman gets confirmed, but it would probably be him and Wolf in the mid-range to cheap. There isn't a cheap guy that I really, really like.
Yeah, I think the only guy I would kind of have interest in there's two guys in a relatively cheap range that I would have interest in, and they're actually one of them is Vitek Vanacek. At home against Utah, sometimes Utah can struggle to score. So Vanacek at 7,200, I think makes a little bit of sense. Other than him, it would probably be the next cheapest guy that I would go down to would be Dustin Wolf. In case Florida just kind of has another game off like they did the other night. But it's really just Vanacek with cheap goalies. I think this is a night where I'd want to pay up 7,900 to 8K, like Mackenzie Blackwood, Spencer Knight, 1 and 2 in projections, 1 and 2 for me as well. And then Connor Hellebuck, if you have the 8,400, I think paying up for him. So I think it's between Blackwood, Knight, and Hellebuck for me, but I don't mind paying down for Vanacek if you need to. Also mention, if you want to go to the other side of that game and go to Vemelka, I think that's fine, but I think I'd rather just kind of save the money and go down to Vanacek.
Yeah, who's starting for Buffalo? They did not announce a probable goalie, so it's either Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen or James Reimer.
And I think Buffalo plays tomorrow too, so there is a chance that Reimer goes tonight.
Yeah, and I guess because he's under 7K, Bennington against Dallas could be spicy, but I really don't want to do it. Anytime there's a goalie under 7K, you have to at least consider it. But of the spots to be under 7K against, that's a pretty rough one. We will be back, I think, next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It's a busy week. Yeah, busy week next week. Busy. There's a big 888 on Wednesday for a 5-game slate because there's no NBA that day. So you get to see our lovely bearded faces a lot next week. Who are you liking for your hat trick pick?
Talked about the game quite a bit. Just talked about the goalies in the game, but I'm going to take a shooter from it. I'm going Dylan Guenther.
3 games in a row. 3 slates in a row. We are on the same guy. I haven't done it yet. I'm doing it tonight. My boy, I've been on this train longer than everyone except for his parents, Kent Johnson.
I mean, go Columbus. We love our Columbus Blue Jackets here.
We do. Good luck, everybody, tonight. We will see you on Tuesday. Maybe we're kicking off the show talking about all the money you won. Good luck, everybody, tonight.
Good luck tonight, everyone.